These are assembly instructions for my pool table card. I'm starting with my card base, so I have the top piece that has a tab at the bottom. I'm just folding down on the score line to create that tab. And I have another panel that has a score line that's not quite in the center, and I'm folding down on that score line as well. My larger panel is in the middle, and my smaller panel is at the bottom. So I'm just going to connect these three panels. I'm putting glue all over the tab that's at the bottom, and then I'm gluing the cut edge of the longer section to the score line on that tab. So the bottom folds up, and then the top panel folds down to create the card. Next, I have the three decorative panels for the interior of my card. I have the wood paneling on the wall, so this will be the top panel, and then the hardwood floor. So these are all patterns that I found within Design Space and used print and cut. If you don't want to use print and cut, then you can unflatten and just cut these out of cardstock. I've rotated my card so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting glue on the underside of my patterned cardstock and then gluing it down, trying to keep an even border on all four sides for all three of my panels. I have three pop-up elements that rise through the bar. These are the bases for the pop-up. They each have a score line at the bottom. I'm folding on that score line to create a tab. And then I have decorative elements for the top. This is my son's birthday. He's going to be 27. And then I have my two glasses of beer. So the glasses of beer were done using print and cut, and I'm just gluing them to the very top. I've used foil cardstock for the numbers, and then I use a little scrap of 80-pound cardstock for the offset. And these brown pieces to hold them are also cut out of 80-pound cardstock. And then I have my three stools, but there are 6 stool pieces because I want to double them up. I'm just gluing one on top of the other, making sure that the edges are nice and even. So my seats are cut out of foil cardstock, and I'm just gluing them to the top of my stool pieces. I also have my pool cues. I've cut these out of craft board. You could also use 110-pound cardstock. Cut 4 pieces, but I've doubled them up as well because I wanted them to be nice and sturdy. So next I have my bar piece. It has score lines that run the width of it, and I'm just folding down on all of those score lines. I cut this out of 80-pound cardstock because it was the right color, but you could certainly use 65-pound cardstock for this. And then I have the decorative panel for the front. I'm putting glue all over it. And this is more of that print and cut pattern that I found in Design Space. Then I have a piece of marble for the top of my bar. I'm putting glue on the underside of it. And then I'm matching up the 3 cutouts with the 3 cutouts that are on my base. And a good way to do this is just flip it over and make sure that you don't see any white of the panel that you're gluing on. Then I have my 3 stools, and I am putting glue on the underside of them, and then I'm gluing them down to the front of my bar piece. I want the feet of my stool to be right on the edge of my decorative panel. Gluing down all 3 of my stools. And so then I have a decorative piece to go on the top of my bar. So I'm folding down just below my piece of marble and gluing the accent piece just under my marble piece. So I have my pop-up elements. I'm inserting all 3 of them. The number 27 goes on the right, and the 2 beer glasses go in the cutouts that are on the left. I'm going to flip my piece over, and I'm inserting my images as far as they'll go. I'm positioning these 3 strips so that they're nice and straight. I'm folding back the little tabs at the end, putting glue on them, and then gluing them down. And I'm doing that for all 3 of them. I'm putting glue all along that bottom section, so from the score line to the edge. I have my card base. I want the same amount approximately on the top and the bottom as I position this. So I'm folding up the top, and then I'm putting this piece right up against the score line. So next I'm putting glue from the score line to the end. It's just below that white panel. And then I'm folding my card shut. And I'm applying a little bit of pressure and waiting till that glue dries. I'm using my bone folder to spread the glue. And so when you open the card, that pops up. So next I'm working on the pool table. So this is for my son. The pool table he's used to doesn't have a traditional green felt. It has a cobalt blue felt. So that's why I'm using blue for the felt on my pool table. I've got 2 similar pieces. One is a little bit longer than the other. And I'm folding down on all the score lines for both pieces. And so then I have some decorative pieces for the legs of my pool table. The legs of both pieces get decorated the same way. I'm just putting the lighter color down first. It's a little bit bigger. And then I am layering the darker color on top, and it's an offset of the lighter color. And I'm doing that for both of them. So I have the tab at the bottom, I'm leaving that alone for now. And then I have a rectangle above that. I'm putting glue all over that rectangle. And then I'm going to take my second piece. It has the exact same rectangle over that tab. I am gluing both rectangles together. I want the score lines to match up and both sides to match up as well. And so then I have the top of my pool table. I have score lines on them as well. So I'm folding down on the score lines and then I'm folding in the opposite direction. I want the right side facing up and I need a V fold, so a valley fold. And there's a score line on this one too. So I have the longer side on my right and the shorter side on my left for all 3 layers. I'm starting with the full panel and then I'm going down the rectangle that has a rectangular cutout in the center of it. I'm just gluing those 2 layers on top of one another. The brown layer goes on top, making sure that the score lines match up as well. And then I've used some black vinyl to create the pockets. I'm just gluing them in the 4 corners and in the center. So next I'm back with my card base. So I've got the bar on my right hand side. I also have the larger segment of my pool table also on my right hand side. I'm folding up both ends of my table and then I have these tabs at the bottom. I'm folding them up as well. I'm placing them right up against the score line, and again I want the same amount at the top and at the bottom, and I'm lifting up my card to make sure that it's right against the score line. I'm putting glue all over that tab and move it ever so slightly, just a little bit away from that score line, and then I'm closing my card. This part is going to stay popped up, so you have to just fold it like this. And I'm just applying pressure where that tab is. Open my card again. I'm flipping my table to the other side and I'm putting glue all over the other tab. And then I'm folding just the table down like so. So now my table is kind of glued down like the letter Y. So I'm starting on the right hand side of my table and putting glue on both of those small tabs from the score line to the end. So then I'm folding the table legs so that they're right up against the table like so. And then I'm flattening the entire table. And I'm applying pressure where those tabs are. So then I'm folding down the other side of the table and folding the legs flat. I'm putting glue on both of those tabs, holding everything down flat on my right hand side. I am folding up the left panel. So then when I open it, my table pops up. I've got the top of my pool table. I'm putting glue all over it. And I am matching up the corners and then I'm gluing it down to the top of my table. So next I have a few more little decorations for the interior. I have a football poster, or soccer, of course, hockey. The top layer is print and cut. The rest are 80-pound cardstock that I've used for the rest of the card. This is 65-pound cardstock. It's scraps from the print and cut. These are all images that I found by assorted cap artists in Design Space. I'm just gluing my posters behind the bar. And then I have the mechanism that goes at the front for the sentiment. So I've got 2 strips. One has no score lines on it and the other one has 3 score lines. I'm just folding down on the score lines for it. So I have the underside facing upwards of my long strip and I have my mechanism piece. So one end has a tab with slivers that are cut off and the other one is just a square. I'm taking the square end, I'm flipping it to the wrong side and putting glue all over the square end, and then I'm placing it so that it's centered and my score line is right up against the edge of my panel like so. So it's anchored at the back and it looks a little bit like this. And I'm putting glue at both ends of that strip. I'm inserting it so the glue is facing me and I'm placing it so that it is centered between the 2 feet on my pool table and right along the bottom of my pool table legs. So I have my card with the bar part on the left hand side and I'm putting glue all along the tab that's on my mechanism. I'm folding on the second score line so that that pop-up piece lays flat against my pool table. And then I'm closing my card. I'm putting a little bit of pressure where that tab is. And so then I have my sentiment. I have that vertical step at the front that I've just created. I'm putting glue all over it. I'm doing my best to center my sentiment horizontally. I want the same amount on the left and on the right. And then I'm adhering my sentiment to that square like so. So next I'm working on the outside of my card. So for the outside of my card, I have my base piece, which is 80-pound cardstock, and then I'm layering some pattern cardstock on top of that. And one of them has score lines on it. So the score lines are there to help me place the images that go on the front of my card. So I have my 3 billiard balls. So I've layered this vinyl on top of 80-pound cardstock for the 3 images, but I have a cutout for where the numbers go. I've got some white cardstock for that. And then I have my numbers that I cut out of black vinyl. So I'm using some very well-loved transfer tape to position my numbers onto the white circles. I've got the circular score lines on my card base to help me position my 3 billiard balls. So I'm starting with the red one. I'm tilting the circular cutout up a little bit. Then I'm gluing down my black one and the blue. And then I'm gluing down my numbers within the cutouts that are in the vinyl. You can always refer back to the original file for positioning. And then I have my sentiment, and I cut this out of adhesive foil. I have some more transfer tape that I've stuck to my jeans a few times. I did that to remove some of the stickiness so that it won't rip my cardstock. And I'm applying my sentiment diagonally to the front of my card. So now I'm gluing my cardstock panels to their 80-pound card base. I've got my card folded closed, and I'm finding the center of my panel on the cover, and I'm putting some red line tape about 1/4 inch from the edge. I'm removing the liner on my red line tape. I have 2 pieces of 1/4 inch ribbon, and I'm adhering one of them to my red line tape and then covering it with red line tape. And then I am flipping my piece over, so you should see the seam at the top. I'm doing the exact same thing with another piece of red line tape and the ribbon. So this is my cover. I'm removing the liner on my red line tape. I'm putting glue on the underside of my cover panel, and I'm just gluing it to the front of my card, trying to keep an even border all the way around. I'm just going in from the inside and spreading that glue, and then matching up the panel for the back of the card, and I'm gluing it down the same way as the cover. And then when I open the card, there's the first panel that you see. So I'm just gluing that one down as well. This would be a good place to put a panel for signatures and that sort of thing. So now I have a few little decorations for the interior of the card. I created this image using shapes and fonts within Design Space, but for some reason, when I included it in my pull file, it generated a bug. And once I removed the image, the bug went away. So I have this image in a separate file so that it doesn't affect this file. So you just have to open both files when you're wanting to make this card. It's sized perfectly for the card. It's just an extra step you have to take if you want this image in your file. So I'm just going to glue these images down pretty much as you see here. And I am going to add my pull cue, and I'm just going to have it leaning up against the bar like so.